Welcome guys, it's Sid. I'm back with another video, and today I want to take you through how you can visualize data in Python using the Pandas library. So Pandas is one of the most popular libraries you will use in Python, and I want to show you how you can create visuals like these in your Python editor in your IDE. We're going to be using Jupyter Notebook, and I will put a link in the description on how you can get Jupyter Notebook if you haven't already. Now, this is going to be a simple short video, and I'm going to dive straight into it. We're going to look at some data here, and the data we're going to use is some dummy data that I've already put together. It's in a spreadsheet. Let me quickly show you the data. So the data is for a fictional, if you like, car manufacturing company. We're tracking sales of various car brands all around the world, or whatever that may be. We've got a column that tracks month, and we've got a column that tracks car brand. So you have BMW, Ford, and Toyota, and we have a column that tracks car sales. So this is fictional data, guys. It's not real data. But what we want to know is, the question is, let's just type this out, how many cars were sold by each brand? That's the first question. And the other question we can look at, if we get the time, is how many cars were sold in each month. And I guess the question for, if we go back to the first one, is which car brand sold the most? And again, same with the second one, which month had the best sales for cars. So once you've downloaded the data, I'll make sure the data is available on my GitHub profile. I'll put a link up to that. You'll have the data file here. I want you guys to open up a new tab in Jupyter. So here I've got a new tab in Jupyter Notebook, and first thing we're going to do is we're going to import Pandas. Excuse my typing here. Import Pandas as PD. We're going to abbreviate Pandas. Escape and then B to enter a new cell. So now what we want to do is bring in the path to the file that we have. So to do this, we need to go into our folder which has the data file. We're going to quotation marks and paste the path, the full path into the quotation marks. And because it's not a string or a value, it's actually a path, we need to use the R, if you like, symbol here. This is an R notation. It essentially says to Python, do not read this as a value. And then what we want to do before we do that is add one more / and this is called car sales data. Data CSV. We need to add the name of the file. Just make sure we got this right. Car sales data CSV. Then we're going to type in, here's print. We're going to type done. So we're just going to run the first cell, second, and third. Perfect. This is working. And then what we want to do is assign this to we're going to get Pandas to then read from this CSV, and we're going to assign the values once Pandas is read from it into a data frame in a variable called df1. And then again, I'm going to type print done. So I'm just going to copy this, paste that. So now we can run this one and run this one. Perfect, we're good. And then to check that it's working, type in df1, hit enter, hit shift and enter, and there we go. We can now see the data as it appears in the Excel file or the CSV file earlier. So this is like a long form data file. As you can see, we've got 3 brands of cars, sales on a month by month basis with cars sold, and we want to kind of visualize this data. So the next thing we want to do is we want to use this is the way we visualize the data. We use df.plot. Now if you want to know how I know this, or how you can figure out exactly the syntax to use, Pandas has a huge website which documents just about every single function and if you like, method. So here you can see all these different options that you have. You got dataframe.lock, dataframe.ilock, got dataframe.where. The one that we're using is plot, and this is where this is where you can use this kind of reference to kind of understand how you can build your this bit of code to visualize your data. Now the way plot works, pandas.plot or df.plot, is it utilizes matplotlib. So you need to make sure matplotlib is installed on your machine. If you haven't already, use pip to install matplotlib, and to do that you just go into command. If you're doing this on Windows, similar in Mac, and you type in pip install matplotlib. Now it'll tell me matplotlib. It'll tell me that I already have it installed. The requirements already met, so there's no real need for me to do it. But this is how you do it. We're going to exit from this. Once you've got matplotlib in here, then we can now start to plot the data. Now we want to do the pivot first, and then we want to do the visualization. So let's go back here. So now you can see we've got a visualization going, but what we really want to do is aggregate our data. To aggregate our data, we're going to use a pivot table in Pandas. Now, if we go back to the Pandas documentation, there's two types of pivot tables, or pivots if you like. There's dataframe.pivot and there's dataframe.pivot_table. This is the one we want to use, not this one. The reason being is because pivot only changes the orientation of your data frame. It doesn't allow you to aggregate any data. And what we need to do is aggregate and sum up all the sales for every month for a car brand. So use pivot_table for this. So what we're going to do is create a pivot, and we're going to type in df1.pivot table. And then we're going to set something called an index. This is essentially what's going to be on the, this is a way to basically what we're doing here is we're saying to Python, on the left hand column I want to see car brands, car brand, and in terms of values that I want to see cars sold. Again, it has to be in square brackets. Let's type this again, cost sold, and then we need to give it an aggregation. It's called agfunc, or aggregation function, and you've got different options here. We're going to do a sum. You can do average, you can do other things, max and min, but we only want to see sum. So just make sure your code isn't clean. There's no errors in your syntax. So we're assigning all of this to a new variable called pivot. We're gonna so I just want to make sure the syntax is correct here. We've got pivot as a variable. It's going to take df1, produce a pivot table. We're going to, on the left hand column, we're going to have car brands, and the values we're aggregating by our car sold, and we're aggregating using a sum. We're going to enter that, and that's done. We don't see any result here, but we will see a result when we enter pivot, and you can now see the pivot table that we wanted. So we've got on the left hand side, we've got all the car brands, and we've got the total quantity sold. Now, in order for us to visualize this, we have a slight error that many people get caught up with. This is essentially a column, and this is also a column. So car brand and car sold. But the problem we have is car brand is essentially, as you can see, it's hanging lower down than car sold. That's because this is essentially becoming an index. So what we need to do is reset the index. To reset the index, we need to run it's a small line of code, but the visualization will only work once we've reset the index. So this is how we reset the index. What we're going to do, add a new line of code. I'm now going to create df2. I want to type in is pivot.reset underscore index, and now we can reset the index for this. And now if we run df2, we can see we've reset the index, and the correct index is now appears on the left, and this is the format we wanted. So this doesn't work, but this now works, and I'll show you in a second why, because when we visualize the data we need to have it in the right format. So now df2 is our new variable. So pivot has now become df2. So df2 we can now visualize. So we go back up before, as we did before. We're going to take this code here and repeat the same. So what we're now going to do is df2.plot, and just make sure we've got this right. And again, same what we want to do. We want to see a bar chart, car brands on the left hand side and car sold So as before, what I'm going to do is df2. So now we can visualize df2. We're going to use the same code as before. And here we go, there's the result. So this is the result we're looking for. You can see Toyota overall had the best sales. Now we can format this. There's a number of different options, but the best way to do it is to look up the variables and parameters that we have in the documentation. So here, if you search for dot plot, you can see along the left here, you got a number of different options. We're using dot plot. So here we can understand, for instance, we can change, instead of a bar chart, we can change it to an area chart, for instance, or a line chart. So let's try that. If we go back here, we can change this bar to a line, and now if we run this, you can see you've got a line that's running from left to right. What if we want to change this to, what was the other option, area? We can now run an area chart instead. So you've got a number of different parameters you can use, and the documentation on pandas.pydata.org gives you all of those. So we're going to go back to bar, but we're going to add a few, we're going to make a few amends, again, using some of the functions here. So the first one is that I don't want a legend. So I'm going to type in legend equals false, run that, and you can see we've dropped the legend. So previously we had cars sold, that is now dropped. What else can we do? We can add a title. So I'm going to call this number of cars sold by brand. We can add this. So now we've got a title up here. What else can we change? We can even add a grid. So let's go add another parameter. We're going to call it grid equals true. I want to see a grid. Let's see what that looks like. So now we've got some lines. This is looking better. And we can add a label to our y-axis. So here you can see car brand, but what is this on the y? On the y-axis, essentially, is car sold. So we can now do y label. And we're going to do cars sold and separate it with a comma, run this. So now it's getting better. We've now got cars sold. And then finally, I want to change the color. Now, you can use a parameter. If you look under here, because this is connected to matplotlib, we're looking for a color map. It's called color map. So we're going to take color map, and we're going to use a color that I like. I want to change these bars to purple. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to type in color map, and just make sure I got this correct, color map. Now what we want to do is change it to a specific color. Now the colors are all determined by, if you like, this color map index, if you like, color map matplotlib. So matplotlib has all the different, colorways and the options. You've got different colors here. So I don't know, I want to go with oranges. Let's just try oranges or reds. Let's just try reds and see what comes out. So we're going to go back here, and we're going to type in color map equals reds, and we need to put that in speech quotation marks as well. So let's run this, and you can see, yeah, it doesn't really work. It's gone really faint and blurry. That's because it started on the left-hand side. So let's try something else, something a bit darker. Maybe we want to go with autumn. Let's try autumn. So we're going to go and change this to autumn. I haven't spelled autumn correct, I believe. Let me get that right. Autumn with a lowercase autumn. Let's go back here. Aut. And that's better. So remember, it's case specific, case sensitive. So autumn was with a lower a. Now we're good, guys. All we need to do, if we want to export this, well, basically this is how you visualize data, really. This is how you visualize data in Python. As you can see, this file could be huge. It could be millions of rows long, but using Python, you can visualize the data without opening it up in Tableau or Excel or Power BI. Python is a really capable kind of language. It can visualize huge data sets, and using plot is a great way to kind of get a feel of the data. If you're like me, looking at numbers is one thing, but looking at visual graphics really allows you to get some context and understanding of your data. Now, all I want to do, I want to show you one last thing, is you can export this. To export this, we're going to use one extra line of code. And that line of code is essentially basically what we're going to do is assign this to a new variable. We're going to assign this to a variable called plot or PLT. Let's just call it visual. We're going to assign this to a variable called visual. So if I run this now, it'll reproduce itself. But now what I can do is call on visual, and we're going to ask, if you like, Python to export our graphic. We're going to use figure.savefig, and then we're going to give it a name, call it car sales, graphic. My spelling is all over the place today, guys. PDF. It could be a JPEG, it could be whatever you want, but I'm just going to PDF it. And then I'm going to write, as you guessed it, done. So let's run this, and we're done. Now let's have a look. This should be saved in our local folder somewhere. And here it is, guys. Let's open it up. Let's have a look just to show you that it works. And there you go. You can now see we've got our PDF, well, our data visual as a PDF. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Data visualization in Pandas is a super cool thing to learn, and I highly recommend it, especially if you're looking to explore data, or if someone asks you for a quick analysis. You can visualize the data really simply and easily using Python and Pandas and using plot and matplotlib. Now, believe it or not, there's a lot more I can show you guys in terms of visualization. This is just if I just go into Google Images, we've got a whole library of visualization options out there. If you look at Seaborn, for instance, you get some really powerful graphics and visualization options. Another one is Plotly, which is another favorite visualization library of mine. So in a future video, guys, do like and subscribe, because I'll show you how you can visualize your data using Plotly and how to build an interactive visualization in Pandas, in Python, which allows you to kind of change a graphic based on buttons or drop down options and selections. So in a future video, guys, we'll cover that. Hope you've enjoyed this one, guys, and I really do look forward to releasing more content soon. And do like and subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Peace.